Hi, this is Helen from the Therapy Hub. I hope you are well. The weather is very wet and windy down here again in Sussex, so I hope your weather's a bit better where you are. I'm dropping in today just to talk a little bit more about stress. If you've been following from the beginning, the last few weeks, I've been talking about stress. And in the first week, I was asking you to notice about how stress was manifesting itself in your body. So you may have noticed things like you were experiencing aches and pains in your shoulders and neck. You may have been having tension headaches or migraines. You may have been experiencing stomach pains, or you may have been having a lack of sleep, all sorts of things it could have been manifesting itself as. And then the following week, I was asking you to scale your stress on the 0 to 10 scale. So, where 0 was no stress at all and no symptoms at all, and 10 was the worst it could possibly be. And then I was asking you to notice and see if you could see a pattern arising in your stress levels, whether certain things were triggering it, or whether it's worse at certain points in the day or on certain days in the week. And I was saying that that was a useful tool because that will help you to see how much your stress levels have gone down after practicing some ways of managing your stress. So then we went on to talk about breathing. And I was talking about the 7-11 breathing technique, about breathing in from your stomach area up in through your nose and out through your mouth. So basically, breathing in for a shorter count than you were breathing out for. So I hope you've been managing to squeeze that into your day. I was saying about how important it is, even if you just do it for a few minutes every day, because that breathing really helps you to focus. It helps your emotions to flow through you easier. It helps you to notice them better without getting overwhelmed. So if you haven't started doing that, do give it a go this week. Okay, find a time slot where you can possibly do it every day, make a little routine of it, and start doing that, because the more you practice it, the more beneficial you will find it. Obviously, if you're only just doing it for a day or two and then you stop, you're not going to see the benefits. So do keep going with it. You will see a benefit from it. Okay, so that's what we talked about over the last couple of weeks. So today I thought I'd drop in, talk a little bit about stress and how it is actually affecting you in your body. So what goes in on in the body while you're getting stressed. So basically, this goes back to sort of our primitive brain, the way we used to react sort of in the Stone Age times, when we were sort of living in caves and, we were hunting, or the men were hunting. For food for dinner, and they'd have to go out from the cave and find food. So they were hunting with their spears while the women were sort of in the home in the cave, looking after the children, maybe going outside occasionally and picking berries and things like that. But it basically goes back to that time, so it's the very primitive part of our brain. And basically, in those times, we were in real fear of our lives because we were going outside and actually having to hunt for live animals. And obviously, there were other wild animals out and about that could easily attack us. So it was a response to kind of protect us, so that we were then set up into this sort of chemical reaction to protect us, to try and save us from basically being killed by these animals. So we call it the fight or flight response, or sometimes it's called the stress response. So if you think about it, in those situations, you would have either fought the animal, the wild animal that was attacking you. You either would have, or you may have run away from it. And also there is a response, also the freeze response, where some animals in the wild and some humans have done this sometimes as well, where they've actually just frozen or pretended to be dead so that the animal is no longer interested in attacking them. So it could be the fight, flight, or freeze response, or the stress response that is known as. So a part of our brain is triggered, and this is called the amygdala. It's at the back of the brain. And when that's triggered, that sets off a chemical reaction in the body. So what's happened in modern day society is, obviously, most of us are not living in that environment where we're coming across wild animals that are attacking us. But we are living in a modern day environment that's very stressful, that can build up a lot of stress and anxiety in people because they're coming across situations that kind of trigger this response. So what's happened is that part of our brain, the primitive part of our brain, hasn't evolved as quickly as our environment has. So environment, if you think about it, it has evolved really quite quickly in the last few hundred years. We have developed so much. Even if you think about the last 20 or 30 years, the rate that technology is developed in, it is massive. So we're actually dealing with stuff that actually our brain isn't quite ready for yet in some respects. So what happens is, in these situations, our brain is kind of perceiving events as dangerous to us. And the trouble is, the more that response gets triggered, the more it becomes kind of hardwired into our brain. So you find that you're more easily triggered. So when that happens, like I said, it sets off this chain reaction in the body. So you may find, what happens is all your blood flow is kind of like drawn inwards to protect you, so that if you got injured, your blood is taken in further inside your body rather than the outside. So if you were cut or injured, it's reacting basically as if you were being attacked by a wild animal. So your blood sort of goes inwards, and that's where you might feel a little bit cold and shivery if you start going into a stress response. Also, things like your brain is then just focusing on the perceived threat. So it will just focus on the threat, and it won't focus on anything else that you're trying to think of at the time. So that's why sometimes people say, oh, I was in this meeting, I was feeling really stressed about it. Everybody was looking at me, and it was my turn to speak, but I couldn't think of what I had to say. It all just went out of my head. Well, that's basically because you're sort of going into that stress response. So instead of focusing on all those words you thought of easily yesterday that you're going to speak in your meeting, they've all gone out of your head because you've gone into a stress response, and all you can think about is those people looking at you, for example. So your body is basically helping you in its own way to cope with that situation. It still thinks that you're in that primitive environment, but obviously now we're in the modern day environment. So lots of things will get triggered in your body because your body thinks it's helping you to survive. So, some people say, oh, I actually feel really quite weak, when I get really stressed or really anxious, or if they go into a panic attack, oh, I'm feeling really quite weak. But actually, your body is at one of its strongest points when you're in that stress response, because the way your body works, the way your brain works, it will have triggered chemical reactions. So basically all your muscles get pumped so that they're full of energy to actually move, because you're getting ready to flee the situation. So although you might feel weak, you're not actually weak, because your muscles are actually getting ready for you to move, to run from that situation. Also, sometimes people say, oh, they're struggling to breathe, they're finding it hard to breathe, and their heart is, they're getting palpitations in their heart. That's basically because your body is getting ready again for that situation to deal with it. And if you're feeling like you can't breathe, that's more going into a panic attack situation. So that's when your stress is getting really bad, or your anxiety is getting really bad. What's happening is, it's not that you haven't got enough oxygen, you've actually got too much oxygen in your body, because you're going like this, sort of constantly trying to breathe little short breaths. And what's happening, you're breathing too quickly and the oxygen's not getting in with the carbon dioxide properly into your body to help you to breathe properly. So actually, strangely enough, the best thing to do in that situation is actually to slow your breathing down. You can cup your hands over your nose and mouth and breathe into those. So it's a bit like, you may have heard of using a paper bag to blow into when you're in that stressed response, when you're in that panic attack situation. So that helps the oxygen and carbon dioxide to balance out so that your oxygen is actually flowing better through your body. Also, what you can do is just hold your breath. I know it sounds strange, but if you hold your breath just for a few seconds, not for a long time, just for a few seconds, that will slow down that sensation. So basically, there's lots of things going on in your body. I won't go through every single one at the moment, but if you can see that what's happening is your body's basically going back to that primitive response of when we were Stone Age people, we were living in our caves and we were experiencing that threat, that real life threat to our lives every day from wild animals. But what's happened is, in modern day society, our brain perceives all these things to be that sort of threat when actually they're not. So the difficulty is you kind of go into this cyclical way of responding to things around you. And like I said, the more you do that, the more it becomes hardwired into your brain. So what you need to do, and what hypnosis does, is to start to unravel that and to weaken those responses so that you're not responding at, every slight thing to go into this stress response. So it then builds new connections so that you're responding to it in a different way, where it's more manageable, where you're not setting off sort of panic response and panic chemicals like cortisol into your body. You're actually dealing with it in a much calmer way. So that's kind of a little bit, a very quick overview of what goes on in your body when you're getting stressed. So to go back to the breathing, which I started off talking about at the beginning, if you use that breathing technique and you practice it daily, what it will do, it will help you to manage those situations better. Because what's probably happening is you're getting into those situations, but you've got no way of managing it. Okay, so you are kind of you're going into that panic because you don't really know what to do with it. And when you don't understand what's going on in your body and you don't understand the sensations, that can make it worse. So that's why I wanted to explain a little bit about what's going on inside your body so that you understand. And I'm sure some of you probably already know about the panic response, the fight or flight response, and the stress response. But just be aware of what's going on for you. Those sensations, they're actually there to protect you. It's our brain's way of protecting us. So what we actually need to learn to do, though, when we're experiencing that, okay, when you're starting to experience that panic in your body and that stress, is we need to put in ways to manage it differently, to calm it down so that we're not getting it escalated eventually into a full-blown panic attack, or we're not developing other habits or behaviors as a result of that. So the breathing exercise is really important. And that's what I really wanted to say again today, is do practice that. Okay, so give it another week. If you haven't started already, do start now. If you find that you are getting into a stressful situation, do use the breathing, okay? You can just, if you've got a meeting coming up, you feel like you're getting a bit stressed and you can feel all those sensations, you've started to notice more what's going on for you in your body, do go, even if you have to go to the toilets, go to the toilets and just do a bit of breathing before the meeting, okay? That's better than you getting into that stressful situation. So do use the breathing to help you wherever you can. I know it's not always easy, but there's usually some way that you can try and use it to help you. Okay. So that's just what I wanted to talk about today. And I hope that's been helpful in you understanding a little bit more about stress and how the breathing can really work for you. Okay. I'll be dropping in again next week to talk a little bit more about stress. Okay. Bye.